Well, it's over. A cruise that started on September the 27th in Southampton in the UK, a cruise on the Norwegian Spirit that has grabbed headlines over the past week. The cruise is finally over. And we're left with the question, do the people that were subjected to a pretty challenging cruise, do they deserve the refund that they are demanding? What's the cruise line's responsibility for the way that the Norwegian Spirit's cruise went for the last 2 weeks? And do the customers deserve a refund? Hey, what's up everybody? This is Tony with Lido Loca. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Appreciate you stopping by, clicking into the video. If you're brand new here, if you enjoy cruising content, please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on any of our content. Hit the notification bell, that way you get notified when we upload a new video. So the story is pretty straightforward. There were 9 ports of call, and almost every one of those ports of call, starting on day 1 of the cruise, was disrupted by bad weather. It compounded on the daily. The passengers would be told that they would be going to a certain location the next day, and sometimes they couldn't go to that location or the substituted location because of bad weather. So you have day after day of building frustration as passengers don't necessarily know where they're going to go, whether the port that they're scheduled to go to will be visitable because of bad weather. Day after day of frustration until it finally boils over when they were supposed to get off in Scotland, and that port of call was also delayed. There is some issue going on with the plumbing on the Norwegian Spirit. There's reports from these passengers that their personal stateroom bathrooms stopped flushing after a while, and public bathrooms stopped flushing. And so you mix in the frustration of missing all those ports or those ports being changed, and then plumbing issues, and it's a recipe for people to pile into the atrium and to complain. It's pretty shocking when you look at the pictures, when you look at the video. It's a full-on protest. You have a atrium full of people who they're not going to trivia, they're not going to the bars, they're not going to have their favorite food. They've taken the time to make homemade signs and to gather together as a group to demand a refund for this cruise that's gone bad. Admirable for sure that they're pulling together as a group, but is it justified? And look, I won't beat around the bush. I don't think these people deserve a refund. And if I was somebody on the cruise ship, I would say the same thing. I don't believe I deserve a refund. As frustrated as I would be, I know I'd be completely frustrated, especially if I'd planned on going to these ports, saved up all that money, took the time off of work, and then I didn't get to go to the ports that I wanted to go to. But at the end of the day, I've entered into an agreement with the cruise ship when I go on a cruise by signing my cruise contract, and my cruise contract says every port that I'm scheduled to go to, I may not go there. The cruise line reserves the right to not go to the cruise ports on the published itinerary. They reserve the right to change the itinerary, and they're not just changing it willy-nilly. Again, they're changing it for the weather. I mean, could you imagine if the cruise line said, to heck with the weather, let's just do our best to get to these cruise ports. I know that the swell is too much for the tender boats and people are going to get sick and it's not safe, but dang it, this is where we said we're going to go. We don't want to have to give out any refunds. We don't want anybody to be dissatisfied. Let's put people in harm's way. Let's take them over to the coast in a rainstorm so that they can have their day at the coast in the rainstorm. Nobody would be happy with that. It's such a weird proposition. Nobody would be happy with that. Again, I understand the frustration of day after day of changes, but the cruise line doesn't control the weather. I know people are saying, look, the reason they want the refund is not because of the weather change, just because of the way the changes were communicated. They don't feel like the crew was forthcoming. They don't feel like they got enough information from the captain. Here's a real world example. Recently, I was on a cruise from China to Japan. A typhoon came in the day that we were supposed to leave China, and there was some question whether or not that cruise would go off or not. At the end of the cruise, there was a chance to sit down with the captain for a Q&A, and he shed a little insight on what the process was for whether they would cruise or not. So this was a Royal Caribbean cruise, and the captain described the situation that at the headquarters of Royal Caribbean in Miami, they have a team there that is watching the weather. They're watching a variety of models for this typhoon, and they had to make a decision in real time whether or not to allow the cruise ship to leave the port of Shanghai or whether it should hunker down and stay in the port of Shanghai. Compounded is none of those models matched up. So they came up with a composite model that said the spectrum of the seas could outrun the typhoon, and they gave the captain the orders hours before we left that that's what they were going to do. We got on the cruise ship as quick as possible, and we took off to outrun this typhoon. Now, what he told us at the end of that cruise is that most of those models were incorrect, and the typhoon actually swung closer to the shore than the models had predicted, and we went through part of the typhoon. Now, nobody knew that in real time, so I don't think anybody could have told us in real time what the situation is. They're taking the information that they have, very dynamic, very changing information when it comes to weather. Because again, I don't know why this needs to be explained. The weather is unpredictable and nobody actually knows what the weather is going to do. It changes on a dime, and so the information that you get is general information at best. So I can understand the angle, oh, we didn't get the best information, we deserve a refund. But again, when you're dealing with the weather, you're not going to get the precise information because nobody has it. Look, the one point that I would be arguing if I was on this cruise ship would be the toilet aspect. I think if all of a sudden I can't use my toilet for 4 days or 3 days, and there's a poop smell in my cabin, and there's a poop smell on the cruise ship, and all the toilets aren't flushing and they're out of order, if that is truly the case, I think I would deserve some sort of compensation for that. That is something that can be controlled by the engineering crew there on the cruise ship, but the weather cannot be. I want to come off as insensitive. I understand why those people piled in that lobby out of frustration, but did it really help anything? Was it just a ploy to get some money back? Did they just want to be heard? I understand all those things, but in a very tense situation, in a situation where people are making decisions at the moment based on the best information that they have, is pulling those people away from trying to make those decisions to deal with your protest, is that really the best thing to do? I don't think so. I don't think the protest was a good idea. I think there was other ways to spread that message without making a cruise that was already stressful even more stressful, not only for the passengers but also for the rest of the crew. I don't know that it's going to result in anything beyond the 25% future cruise credit that Norwegian has offered. We'll have to look. We do live in a culture where if enough people put pressure on you, policy doesn't matter, contracts doesn't matter. You just want your perception, the people's perception of you to be good. But I, for one, don't know what else Norwegian could have done in that scenario. I'm glad they're not sailing people into poor weather, and I know that it's hard to give the best information in an environment where things are constantly changing. Me personally, as a cruiser, I would give them the benefit of the doubt. I would be happy that they gave me anything. That's the risk that you take when you cruise during hurricane season. I know people take vacations when they can, but that's the risk that you take. That's that cruise life. You never know what's going to happen, especially in times of bad weather. You've got to be flexible. You got to be willing to roll with it. But again, that's just this cruiser's opinion. I would love to know what you think. Do these people deserve a refund? Leave a comment below. Thanks so much for stopping by. This is Tony with Lido Loca. Hit the like if you think about it. And until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.